the Nuggets have been doing some good stuff. We have not talked about the Nuggets in a while. They're on this, it's almost indescribable, where if they're down 20, you feel like they can come back. If they're down 8 in the fourth quarter, you feel like they're going to win. If they're up 8 in the fourth quarter, you feel like the game's over. So they take all these different identities, right? If you're comparing them to a football team, they're the football team that in the fourth quarter down 10 can come back and put 2 touchdowns on you. They're also the team that if they're up 10 in the football game, they could just run the ball and run out the clock and you're never going to get the ball back. It is unreal. I said to KOC the other night, I thought this is one of the 3 best teams I've seen this century.
Wow.
0-1 Lakers, 17 Warriors in this team.
Yeah.
And then special asterisk kudos to the 2013 Heat during the winning streak. I think those are the 4 best teams. They never were able to really put it together during a postseason, but I think those are the 4 best teams I've seen this century. Where do they rank for you?
Thank you for saying asterisk correctly, by the way. That's one that's people mess up a lot. I appreciate that. I had this written down in my notes. I'm glad that you said this because this is like right in the strike zone of where my brain was too, because like I noticed this over listening to different shows and like reading different things when people were talking about this team, where over and over again you would hear people say like this, they'd say they should be up more. Like whenever that, like if a team gets a little bit of a lead on them, like tonight, they said it on the broadcast. They were like, man, feels like the Lakers should be up more. Like even if you hit them with a big haymaker, and like in the beginning of this game, it was just that like LA was like just running. It was a little deceptive because they weren't really just like executing Denver to death. I mean, they had some good moments, but they were just running a lot. I think in the first half, they had like 13 transition looks and they scored or were fouled on like all of them. They were having a lot of success with that. But Denver just kind of keeps chugging along. And I feel like that's kind of the last level. Like, you know, for like a team that like reaches that, like I remember like, I know this is going to make your skin crawl, but like when I used to watch baseball in the early 2000s, it was like those Yankee teams were like that, where like even if you had a good game against them, it was just like, man, but the lead's still not that big. And I just feel like they have that inevitability about them where they're just going to continue to do what they do. And you just kind of can't shake them out of it. Like they just are going to keep coming.
I have not seen anything to change my opinion that they're going to win the title. Kevin Wilde's my buddy who was on here last week. He's been doing this gimmick on Twitter, which I made fun of him about, where he's like, nobody's beat the Nuggets in a 7-game series. It's actually one of the most obvious favorites we've had of this century, where I just don't see a scenario where they lose unless somebody gets injured, basically. That's it. Like that. I think it would have to be one of the top 4 guys. But you saw with the Celtics last night. This is like, people thought I was trying to reverse jinx the Celtics, or I'm just doing the glass half empty thing, but I just don't think they have any chance of out executing.
So you agree with
Denver
Kevin?
Team.
You agree with KOC? Did you say what KOC said about it?
Well, I've always felt that. Well, KOC, yeah, he ramped it up. He threw some steroids and some HGH on the take, but I just don't think they will be able to out execute this Denver team in a 7-game series. I don't see it. I didn't see it the whole year, and you could see like in that Miami game, not to shift this to the Celtics, but in that Miami game, some of the strategy stuff was just so head scratching, right? When they fell behind, all of a sudden it's one-on-one basketball. You can just see things slip away. Whereas Denver always keeps their structure, right? They never get phased. They never play at a different speed. They're never frantic. They're always just like, we're the Nuggets. We're going to figure this out. And, you know, they have the one of the biggest game breakers in the history of the sport. To me, he's on the Bird Magic level at this point.
Yeah.
And now it's just about padding the resume and getting the actual resume to where those guys are. But I don't see much difference from impact between him and those two.
I wanted to ask you about, I want to, like his play style specifically, but like something that really stood out to me in this game, having watched them sort of like on their playoff arc over the past few years, like going back to, I feel like it kind of started to shift during the bubble. I remember I had like prepared like a whole video where I was like trashing their effort and stuff. And that was like when they kept winning. And I was like, okay, well, that's like, 90 hours down the tube where I had worked on that. But Denver fans, it was to their benefit. But like as it started to shift over time, I've just kind of noticed that like the Nuggets have taken on Nikola's personality in a way where like he used to be, he still has some of that. Like it's similar to Luka, where if you just kind of prick the surface a little bit, it'll show up every once in a while. But he used to just kind of wear his heart on his sleeve all the time and would just run super hot and get himself out of the game. You remember like the crying fits he would have at the refs when he just storm off, or like, you just don't see that as much from him. And I see like throughout the game with them, we just keep saying the same kind of things over and over again. Like you can't speed them up. You can't get them off what they do. I feel like the Nuggets have really just kind of become him in a good way. Whereas in the past, if he pulled himself out of the game, you could kind of feel them fall apart. Like the physicality, stuff like that just doesn't rattle them the way it used to. And I feel like that's sort of the evolution that has made them kind of what we're talking about now, where they have this crazy talent, but you can't get them to get off their game anymore just because of that.
It's a good point. The pace that they play, I think, is so unusual. And it's another thing that comes from him, because you don't think of him as this guy who's like, go, 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 go. But he is, and when he slows stuff down, it's always for a reason that has to do with the game. Like, I'm going to slow down this play because I want to set up this specific matchup and I want to get this. And if we do this, then that will lead to this and we'll get that. But for the most part, they're always trying to push because he's such a special passer. And his ability to just grab the ball and take off with it. Like I don't know how many guys in the history of the league have been able to do that well. To be able to get a rebound in traffic and then go and then create the play. Is that a list of less than 10 guys? Is it 8 guys? I don't know what the final number is, but it's not a long list.
Yeah.
And then his ability to actually, you know what? I'm going to take this guy myself. Can you guys just move over here? And I'm just going to do my whirly whirl back it down thing. Watching him just suck the life out of the Lakers. I mean, LeBron, the body language for LeBron in the second half was crack, because he knew, like, if D'Lo's not going to hit, this team has no chance. Their really only chance was to do a little like what Miami had last night, which is we're just going to make a bunch of threes and try to hang with you and outshoot you, basically. D'Lo didn't have it. They wasted 2 pretty good offensive games from Davis and James, and it just doesn't matter. Those guys had 59 points combined. Didn't matter. Davis was over in the third quarter.
Davis was awesome, I thought, throughout the game. It's funny, like, it wasn't, sometimes you look at the box score and you'll just be like, well, look at the draw. Like, if you look at it, like, Denver took 27 threes and they didn't even hit 20%. LA shot 22 and they shot 13, about 13.5%. Like, you're talking about like Jokic, like what makes him great. Like, obviously the passing, obviously the scoring. Like, having those 2 separate things in and of itself is like great. But I've always said that, like, the balance of his understanding of the balance of those 2 things is what makes him great. Because, like, if you watch him, like, he could shoot, like, the Philly game tonight. Like, there was a sequence where Embiid just was like, I'm shooting a no dribble 3, like, 8 times in a row. And he, like, like, you would never. But the thing about Jokic is, like, you can't lure him into like any kind of like self-sabotaging agenda like the way that you can some other players. Like, I'm trying to think of like some of the other stars in the league. I mean, Tatum is a guy, like, if he gets on like a tough shot streak, he's like, I'm taking the next one. Like, guys who are kind of like that, Jokic will not bail you out with a decision like that. He has no sort of like tilt this way or that, like, I really want to score here. He's just like, no, I want to play the game. And like, he just punishes you. He just kind of like constricts like a python over and over throughout the game until you just, and that's the result of his decision making. He had a sequence where I think it was an offensive rebound where Rui just happened to be on the same side as him. And I was just like, oh boy, this is bad. You could just see what was coming immediately.
Yeah.
And he posts him for like a second and a half, maybe, double comes, rifle to the opposite side, swish 3. It was like, that's the challenge of guarding them, but just because he could score on anybody, and it doesn't matter what kind of help you send. He has all the tools to exploit it and the mind to exploit it.
Well, the irony of the Lakers, like Caldwell Pope being on the other side there, right? That was one of the guys they gave up in the Westbrook trade. And Caldwell Pope, it feels like he's gotten better every year for the last 5 and has just turned into this incredibly valuable 3-and-D asset where it doesn't even really matter if he scores. But he can guard anybody and just fits in. He knows how to play. Doesn't care if he gets the ball. And then Caruso was the other guy they let go after 21, where they just didn't want to pay him. I think they offered him 3 for 21, and Chicago offered him 4 for 37. And the combo of those, when you watch a game like tonight, and you think like, they won that 2020 team. It's a better version of LeBron. He's just 4 years younger. Davis, that's about as good as we've ever seen him until this year. Mm-hmm. But then the supporting guys were just a lot more reliable because of the defense, some 3-point shooting, some savvy. Rondo's on that team. Dwight Howard was another big guy for them. And I don't feel like the Lakers are necessarily like much worse than that team, but it's the subtle differences where they just can't get stops and they can't survive if Rui's been terrible for most of the series, but if 2 of those 3 guys suck, it's just hard for them to win. They can't get enough points. I don't know how they fix this. It was your mindset. LeBron played 42 minutes tonight. Your mind starts going, what happens to this guy?
Yeah.
Does he stay on this team? They just got swept by the Nuggets last year. It looks like they're going to get swept by them this year. It would be the 12th straight time if they lose game 4 that they would have lost to Denver. That's the team they need to get by. They have no chance.
And right? Jokic is 27. Where's he going?
Yeah,
their whole core is young.
Right. Yeah.
28, yeah.
Yeah, and their whole core is young. That team's not going anywhere. They've already had their bad luck with the Murray injury. And to me, this opens the door for what happens with LeBron. What's important to him? Is it just I'm going to finish my career with LA. It's almost done. Then I'll be involved with the Vegas ownership. Is it I want to go play with my son? Is it I want to go be on one more really good title team? And how this is played out makes it more realistic to me that he wouldn't stay. I'm not positive that matters. It's going to be his 22nd year, and I'm not sure. Can you win a title anymore if he's one of your 2 best players? I don't know. I would lean toward maybe not, especially with like the injury potential. And my mind keeps going back to Karl Malone in 2004 when it's just, oh man, well, Karl Malone, he never gets hurt. And then all of a sudden he got hurt twice and he was out of the league, Yeah. When you hit your 40s, you start getting hurt. It's a different animal. But to me, like the ass-kicking nature of this series in this game and then the way they were able to come back in game 2, I know the Laker fans would be like, no, we almost won game 2. It's like, yeah, but that's not the point of game 2. Game 2 is like you had a 20-point lead and it didn't feel like enough when you were up 20. And I just don't know if he wants to win a 5th title. I don't know how you run it back with the Lakers. There's no fix. It's not Trae Young. It's not Zach LaVine. There's no fix. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the types of guys that worked around LeBron, like in the types of like contained roles that he could still win with, like having those guys play. If you think about like those Miami teams, he, with like catch and shoot guys, he had a lot of success. It just seems like as he's aged.
Yeah, but that was 10 years ago, LeBron, though, right?
That's my point.
He was like a Swiss Army knife at that point.
Yeah, that's my point. That like as it's gone on, he's his like meter. I'm doing a gesture here that doesn't really make any sense, but like his meter for like I need more help has gone this way, and he needs guys to assert themselves a little bit more. Whereas like it'd be incredible to have like a Kyrie in this situation or somebody who could assume. But these guys that he has are all sort of like distressed asset. It's sort of like. Reeves was an awesome find. They got really fortunate there that worked out, and that was a great draft. But, Christie has been ready to play. Hood Schifino not ready to play.
Not taking Jaquez in that draft. Not taking, whether it was like the ceiling of whoever, but not taking a guy who could be ready to play immediately and taking like a project, I guess, as a trade asset.
That's what I thought. This summer, they drafted 3 of those guys in a row. They drafted Christie, Hood Schifino, and then Maxwell Lewis, the Pepperdine guy. And I was like, this makes no sense. I was like, these guys aren't going to be ready to go. And I was like, I wonder if they're going to like bank on like these are the types of valuable players we could flip for something else. That's what I thought they were doing. But
and then they didn't flip them.
Maybe the deal didn't come along or they couldn't make it work. But I heard Jaquez didn't want to be in LA. That's what I heard, that he was glad. Maybe he was just saying that to Miami people. But I heard that he wanted to get away. I find that
hard to believe. His sister goes to UCLA and like really? He's not going to want to play for the Lakers? Who knows? Russell had a really good year for them. And I think if you're just saying like, $17 million for a free agent guard, for the year he had, where he basically shot 43% from 3 for the last 5 months of the season, but deep down lurking was the Russell we were all hoping. Yeah, look, this is going to be the big topic. I would be surprised if they won the Saturday game. Usually, unless the league really intervened and just was like, hey, anytime Jokic powers on anybody, just call foul on him.
Scott Foster's on a plane right now, I bet you.
Scott Foster and his brother Bob. Yeah, I mean, this will be one of the stories, but I guess the bigger question is, should it even be that big of a story that this is it for LeBron? It probably has, at least on a Laker run. I don't, like, if they had Kyrie Irving, do you think that would have changed the series? Because I'm not sure. I just feel like, maybe they win 2 games, but I just don't think anyone's beating Denver.
Yeah, them beating Denver is like a whole other part of the conversation. But yeah, I mean, like a more competitive series. I think so for sure. I've been a weird Kyrie defender lately. Like in
he's
the past.
Been good.
Sirrett was giving me a bunch of shit for drafting him in like an all-star thing we did last year. I was like, the cloudiness of all his off-court stuff made us forget. And the Dallas stuff has reminded us, I feel like, that like, yeah, this dude's like one of the best basketball players alive. I think he would have made a difference, but it's all hindsight now.
But he would have made a difference in actually winning a series different, or just making it more interesting?
Well, maybe not against the
Denver's
Nuggets.
Up 2-1.
Yeah. Maybe not against the Nuggets.
So they draw LeBron at this point of his career draws the worst possible double beat. One is that he just has this monolith in front of him. It's something he never had to deal with his entire East run, right? He's in the East from 11 to 18. There was really no team on any level of the team. He was the one team that really had a chance was the Bulls, and then Rose hurt his knee. That was the one team I felt like had a chance maybe to get their talent versus talent. Celtics got old as the early 2010s, and never had it. And then the Golden State piece, he goes to the Lakers. Durant, blows out his Achilles, then ends up leaving Golden State, and then Murray gets hurt. And it just seems like it's going to be the same situation where there's no dominant team. And then all of a sudden last year, there's a dominant team. And I don't know what the move is for him. And maybe it doesn't matter. He's had an unbelievable career. He got 40,000 points. He has 4 titles. He won some MVPs. He's going to have a lot of the long-term records. And maybe he's not going to, maybe he's just going to want to be like, you know what? I want to play with my son, and that's going to be it.
So he's going to be playing for
Dallas?
Well, I was going to say what's the Mexico City G League team or something, like he's going to be
well, they'll bring
relegate himself.
Bronny up.
No, I don't. When he turned that ball over late in the game, that one that was sort of like an unforced turnover, it had a weird energy about it. And I texted one of my friends what you were talking about. I was like, that felt just sort of symbolic to me. I don't know. There was something about it, and he was like, "You're reading into this too much," but that's just what we do, I guess. But I don't. He doesn't strike me as somebody that's gonna. He's I think he takes a lot of pride in still being so competitive, and that's part of his legacy. It seems like it would be a really weird left turn for him to just be like, I'm good. I feel like LeBron's going to kind of die on the battlefield.
Well, then that means he's got to switch teams.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's not going to, and people will be like, no, they have a couple picks. They'll be able to get somebody. It's like, there's nobody they're going to be able to get that they're going to have enough assets to actually get, let's say Devin Booker ass out of Phoenix. Like, let's say that goes sideways. They're not going to have enough assets for him. Guess who's going to have to be in the trade? Anthony Davis. So you're going sideways with whatever, or you're going to have to roll the dice with somebody that's like a distressed asset, which they've been doing for the last couple of years. And ironically, all this starts with the Russell Westbrook trade, where they give up some real assets. They give up a pick. Then they're stuck with Westbrook. They have to attach a pick just to get rid of him to get the guys back. There's a fork in the road there where they could have rolled the dice with Kyrie, but you can't really blame them considering they've taken 2 firsts. Where Kyrie's head was at. And it's just the situation is what it is. Yeah, this is the first time I felt like I could see the finish line for him. I don't know. Unless he starts doing mid-level exception or just like, I'm just going to join this team for $2 million because I want to win a 5th. I don't know if he'd want to do that. Could you see him being like, wouldn't be the Celtics because he hates Boston, but so Denver, Minnesota wouldn't be. Dallas would, I guess, be the team. I'm going to join Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm now on Dallas for 1 year, $2 million. Want to play with Luka, moving to Texas. Like, it's just weird. I don't see him doing it.
I'm trying to think of a team that really could use him that has because the Cleveland thing I don't think would work. Like they would have to move off of a lot of people. Like
How about Philly?
Him and Allen and Mobley couldn't play together, but they probably could figure it out. But
that Cleveland homecoming would be interesting.
Yeah, because him and Mitchell
trade.
Yeah, him and Mitchell and Garland could work together. Like I think like the passing, him as like a passing kind of fulcrum between those two guys could work if Mitchell even stayed. Philly's interesting. I don't know. Is Embiid even going to be in Philly though? That's a good question. You hear that even from Philly fans. They're like, "Oh, he wants out of here." So I don't know. It's
Orlando,
hard to say, man. Yeah,
maybe LeBron or show LeBron the tape of Orlando Game 3, just laying the smackdown on Cleveland.